Today we're going to talk about how you can get the Dorian mode to actually sound like the Dorian mode in your guitar and not end up playing in the relative major or the relative minor, or maybe just not being sure what any of those things are. I'm going to walk you through the common pitfalls that people make mistakes with and give you all the understanding you need to make sure that you're actually writing in a mode and what you should be looking for to make sure that it sounds right. Let's jump in. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to talk about what the Dorian mode is really quickly and bring you up to speed so that we can make sure that we're definitely in that Dorian mode and not in something else. So the simplest way to explain it, and how this was explained to me when I first started playing, the Dorian mode is the same as a major scale but starting from a different note. So if I play G major, that goes G, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, G. So it's all the natural notes apart from an F sharp. Now to play in Dorian, I'm going to use all those same notes, but I'm going to start from note number 2. So my A note becomes my starting note, and it now sounds like that. So A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, G, A. It's all the same notes, but it has a different sound. Now, really importantly, this is a concept that I want to portray now because we're going to use it through the whole of this video. I want you to think of all of the notes in our major scale like a solar system, or like our solar system. So we have the sun, and then we have the planets that go out from there, and everything revolves around the sun. Now in G major, the sun is the root note, and everything revolves around that root note because everything resolves and sounds like it's going to end with that G note. No matter what I play, it sounds like we're heading home to the G note. So when we move to play in Dorian and we're moving everything to the second note of the scale, it's like we've taken our solar system and we've moved everything out one step, and the whole solar system's now going to start revolving around this second planet out. The sun is going to revolve around it, everything's going to move, and so the whole thing's going to look completely different. And in our scale, it sounds completely different, even though we have exactly the same set of notes. Let me show you what I mean. So for that to happen, and for you to be in the key or in the mode of the Dorian scale, you need to make sure that note number 2 has become home. And this is a really important concept that I'm going to illustrate throughout this video, how you can do it, because this is the biggest thing that makes a difference between whether you're actually in the Dorian mode or out of the Dorian mode. So how do you make note number 2 sound and feel like it's become note number 1, even though we've got the same set of notes? So the first way we're going to do this is we're going to do it with chords. We're going to make sure that our chords sound like they're in the Dorian mode and not in the original scale. So let's take a look at what G major has as chords and how we take those and make them sound like we're in the mode. And if you're wondering why we've jumped to chords when we're talking about modes, it's because this is a huge misconception people have around modes. They think that it's just a scale that you play, and that somehow if you play the notes of that scale, you'll suddenly be sounding like you're in that mode. And it's not always true. It's mostly not true. Mostly you don't have control over being in a mode. It's actually the chords that dictate whether we sound like we're in a mode or not. It's not always the case, but most often it's the chords that make the difference. So we're going to start there, and then we're going to look at melodies later on in this video, but I really recommend that you watch this first because the melodies will make more sense once you understand how the chords work and the chords influence those modes to begin with. Okay, so let's take a look at our chords in G major. So in G major, if I have one chord for every note in that scale, they're going to go in the same order. And this is true for every major scale, but we have G major is chord 1, we have A minor is chord 2, B minor is chord 3, we have C major is chord 4, we have D major is chord 5, we have E minor as chord 6, and we have F sharp diminished is chord 7, and then back to G major for our chord 1 again at the top. Now if we move to A minor, it's all the same chords again, except chord 2 now becomes chord number 1. So now we have A minor is chord 1, B minor is chord 2, C major is chord 3, D major is chord 4, E minor is chord 5, F sharp diminished is chord 6, G major is chord 7, and A minor is at the top again. chord 1. So in order to sound like we're in Dorian, we need to make sure chord number 2, or our new chord number 1, the A minor, really feels like home. How can you achieve that? Well, one way is simply to avoid the G major chord. If you can write chord progressions where the G major chord is pretty much avoided, and we're using chords from the rest of the key, it's probably going to sound like we're in A minor, as long as A minor is the feature chord. So let's try it. So A minor. Okay, and then the way to test is which one feels like home. Does that feel like home? I think probably it does. And then let's just double check that G major doesn't feel like home, because that would be the worst. No, that doesn't. It feels like over. Because we haven't heard that G major, we're not expecting it. If I made it a feature chord, we could end up shifting back to G major. Now we could still keep the G major in, as long as it's not a feature chord. It could be a passing chord or something really short. So I'm going to stick it in, but just for like half a beat this time. And let's see if we can sneak it in there, still having a G major chord in, but not making a feature of it, and see if we can still make it feel like we're in A Dorian. So because it wasn't a feature, it still sounded like A Dorian to me, and it didn't sound like that was the end of the song at all. Okay, so that's us in A Dorian, but there's another problem with playing chords and trying to keep in A Dorian, because we're trying to center everything around A minor, and at this point you might be thinking, well, how do we know we're in A Dorian and not just the key of A minor? What's the difference between those two? And that's a fine balancing act. It's a really good question. We've got to make sure we're not in G major because it's got all the same notes. But how do we make sure we're not just in A minor too? Well, let's examine what happens in A minor and how we can deal with it. So in A minor, we have A, B, C, D, E, F, G. So there's no F sharp. In A Dorian, remember, it's A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, G, A. So the way we make sure the difference, and we can hear the difference, is we need to have chords or parts of the melody, which we'll come to later on, that have that F sharp in, so that we can really hear the difference between A minor and A Dorian. So let's check and let's examine A Dorian side by side with A minor. So both keys have A minor as chord 1. Chord 2 in A Dorian is B minor. In A minor, it's B diminished. So they sound quite different there. Chord 3 is exactly the same, both C major. Chord 4 is D major in the Dorian. It's D minor in minor. Chord 5 is E minor in both. No difference. Chord 6 is F sharp diminished in the Dorian, but F major in our minor, in the A minor key. And chord 7 is G major in both. So I'm just going to play the A Dorian one chord at a time so you can hear what that sounds like, and then I'll play A minor back to back. So this is the A Dorian. Okay, so that's A Dorian. Now A minor sounds like this. So it's close, like it's really close. But there's 3 chords that are really different, and it's chords 2, 4, and 6. And so if we can make sure our chord progression features one of those chords, we're going to sound like we're in Dorian. So an example from earlier on is I used the A minor and the B minor next to each other, and it sounded like it was in Dorian, and that's because B minor has that F sharp in. If we were in A minor, then we'd be hearing a B diminished there. But the Dorian version sounds like this. Or we could use chords 1 and 4. So in Dorian it sounds like this. In A minor it would sound like this. We could go 1 to 6. This is going to sound a bit funnier because we're moving to a diminished chord in the Dorian, but it still works. So we're going A minor to F sharp diminished. So in the minor version that would sound like this, A minor to F. Doesn't sound similar at all. Alright, cool. So really if it's about getting that F sharp in and feeling the A minor as the home, then another way, and an even simpler sometimes way that you can achieve that, is to literally play the one chord, the A minor, and add in the F sharp to that chord. So if we do that, we end up with A minor 6. And this is a very kind of funky sound, I think, so. So just adding in that F sharp and hearing it with the A minor, that dictates that we're definitely not in A minor as a key. And that's important here that we have a distinction between the chord of A minor, which is in both, but the key of A minor, the scale of A minor, we're not sounding like we're in because we have an F sharp, so it definitely sounds like a Dorian at this point. All right, cool. So good work on following through with the chords section. Now, how does this work in melodies? Well, it's exactly the same principle in chords. We need to make sure that our home note feels like an A, and our F sharp is a feature in there, that we don't sound like we're in A minor again, or we're going to be able to resolve to G major. So a good way to do that is we need to make a feature of both those notes. We need to make it feel like A is going to be home, and we need to make sure that the F sharp is in there and we hear it in our melody. So one way you can do that is to start with a leap in your melody between those two notes. So here I'm going A, F sharp, or 1 to a natural 6, E, D, E. So there, when I hear it, I don't think it sounds like it's resolving to that note, which is G, so that's good. I feel like it resolves to the A, and I've definitely heard the F sharp in there. An F would sound wrong at this point. That feels weird. So it feels like it's in Dorian to me, and a nice way to check whether we're in Dorian is to play that melody and then play an A minor chord, or the 1 chord. And see if it fits with the chord that you know sounds in Dorian. All right, well done. So today we looked at how you can make sure you're in Dorian, not in major or in minor, And we've looked at how you can play melodies that actually sound like they're in Dorian and not in major or in minor, and know and have a testing process for whether you're actually in Dorian properly. I hope you enjoyed today's session. If you want more content like this, hit subscribe. I'm trying to get to 1,000 subscribers here at the moment, so I really appreciate your help. And I will see you next time on Thursdays and Saturdays. Thanks, guys. See you soon.